Dr. Joe on Grow with Dr. Jonette. Today we are making apple crisp. This is one of my favorite fall desserts, so let's get baking. We're going to start here by making the topping for our apple crisp. I have in this bowl here 1 cup of rolled oats. They are the old-fashioned rolled oats, not the instant rolled oats. To that I'm adding 3/4 of a cup of flour, a little bit of salt, about a teaspoon of apple pie spice, and a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. I'm going to mix that all up. And I'm going to add that. Looks like it didn't quite all get melted, but that's fine. It'll still mix in just fine. And a lot of times I also like to use my hands to kind of make sure everything gets nicely combined. So there we've got a nice crisp. Now we've got a nice topping for our apple crisp, and we're going to set that aside and go ahead and mix up the apple part of it. Before we get started on the apple part of our apple crisp, I want to talk about my Simplest Smarts tip. My Simplest Smart tip today is if you don't have apple pie spice, and you can also find apple pie spice if you go to my shop. There's apple pie spice there in the shop. But if you don't have it and you want to make a dessert that requires apple pie spice, go ahead and make your own. All you need is cinnamon, allspice, and nutmeg. You're going to take 3 tablespoons of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of allspice, 2 teaspoons of nutmeg, mix it together, and you've got your apple pie spice. Put it in an airtight container, and then you'll have it for a number of recipes. Some people like to add cardamom to it as well. If you want to add cardamom, I would add like a 1/2 teaspoon of cardamom. So there you have it. There's my Simplest Smart tip for if you don't have apple pie spice. For the apple dessert, we are going to, I've got 3 cups here of Granny Smith apples that I've sliced. And you can see I sliced them fairly thin. So 3 cups of Granny Smith, which is a tart apple, and 3 cups of a sweet apple. Here I've used today is Gala because that's what I had. But you could use any sweet apple, any tart apple, or you could use all tart or all sweet, whatever you prefer. I like kind of half and half. And to that I'm going to add about 3/4 of a cup of sugar. But before I add the sugar, I'm going to add instant clear gel, which is a sweetener from King Arthur flour. You can also find that on my shop, on my website, growwithdrjonette.com. So we're going to add, for this recipe, I'm adding about 3 tablespoons of the thickener. The thing I like about the instant clear gel, you can also get it on Amazon, you can get it on nuts.com. There's a number of places you can find it. But the thing I like about it is that you mix it into your sugar first, and it instantly will thicken any sort of, especially a really juicy pie. This is great for, because it instantly thickens it so that the juice from your fruit doesn't soak into your apple or into your pie crust. I'm also going to go ahead and add a couple of teaspoons of my apple pie spice. Mix that all in, add that to my apples, and we're ready to add that to our baking dish. I've got my oven heating already. It should be up to temperature now. It's going to be 350 degrees, and we're going to, it's going to be 350 degrees that we're going to bake our apple dessert at, or apple crisp at. I'm just stirring this all in. Some of the apples kind of were stuck together. I used a Breville food processor with the slicer blade on it. It makes it quick, easy work of your slicing up your 6 cups of apples. And I kind of want to get all of them a little bit coated there with the sugar. So for your baking pan, I've sprayed a 8 by 13 inch baking pan with a little bit of pan spray. Oh, another thing I like to actually add to my apple crisp, now that I'm thinking about it, and I think I'm going to go ahead and add it, is a little boiled cider. Boiled cider is basically just concentrated apple cider that you've boiled down, and it adds an extra delicious apple flavor to it. I add a couple of tablespoons to the apple pie, or to the apple crisp. Mix that in, add some extra apple deliciousness. And I think this is ready to go into our baking dish. If you like a really thick, because remember, these apples are going to, once they get cooked, they're going to decrease in volume by about a half. So if you like a really thicker apple crisp, I would use a 9 by 9 inch pan. I'm using an 8 by 12 inch pan here today. Because I'm going to be taking this to work, and a little bit more is a little bigger pan will go a little further. I often like to take what I bake into work and share it with my colleagues at work. They always enjoy sampling and giving me feedback on my recipes. It's also a great way to make sure that Farmer Fred and I don't eat quite as much as we would otherwise if I kept my desserts at home. Especially my desserts. Even the other recipes I quite often will take into work and share. But especially the desserts. Let's talk a little bit about our neuronutrition tip for apple crisp. You may wonder, what is the neuronutrition of a dessert? For this particular recipe, the neuronutrition is fiber. Apples are loaded with fiber, and our gut needs fiber to stay healthy. The gut has a microbiome, in other words, the bacteria in our gut, and they thrive in a high fiber environment. So adding fiber to our diet is important. Raw apples or even cooked apples will add fiber to your diet. So when you add fiber to the diet, you keep your microbiome happy and healthy. When they're happy and healthy, they're going to keep you happy and healthy. Literally, they're going to keep you happy because they generate 80% of the serotonin that your body has. Serotonin is that happiness molecule that we have in our brain and our body. In fact, when people are depressed, one of the biggest antidepressants takes and blocks the reuptake of serotonin, so that our serotonin lasts longer and is more bioavailable. In other words, available for our brain to use and keep us happy. So a happy biome, a happy gut is gives you a happy biome, which gives you a happy mood. So I'm going to go ahead now and add the topping to our apple dessert, and we're ready to put it into the oven. I'm going to bake it probably about 40 to 45 minutes at 350 degrees. If you like a really soft apple, after it's baked, if you like a really soft apple rather than a more crispy, crunchy apple in your apple crisp, go ahead and bake it for a full hour. But to keep it from over browning, you may need to cover it with a little aluminum foil at about the last maybe 15-20 minutes. So into the oven it's going to go, and we are going to, in fact, my colleagues at work are going to be delighted. In fact, I told them I was bringing in some apple crisp. So they're going to be so excited to have some apple crisp in the middle of the night. There's something so good about maybe around midnight, you're hungry, you're kind of tired, or maybe even 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're hungry, you're tired, and a little bit of apple and cinnamon and deliciousness will help pick up your mood as well as wake you up a little bit. So we're putting this in our oven. So our apple crisp just came out of the oven about a half hour ago, long enough that I can actually touch the pan and it's cool enough. So I'm going to go ahead and get a spoonful of it here for, you can see the apples are nice and thick and they aren't juicy and the juice isn't running into the bottom of the pan, which I like. And let me put that there. And let's take a taste. Delicious. A little bit sweet, a little bit tart. The apples are cooked a little bit more than I like. I like my apples a little more towards the crispy side, but overall very good. And I think the people at work are going to really enjoy it. Thank you for watching, clicking that like button, as well as signing up for notifications. When you sign up for notifications, you will be notified whenever I post a new video with a new recipe, gardening tip, or even neuroscience tip for good neural health. So go to my website at growwithdrjoannette.com for more information to see this full recipe, and see you next time on Grow with Dr. Joannette.